Okay, what's going on, everybody? My name is Mangg. Welcome back to Hanging with Mangg. Just, I don't know, playing some Final Fantasy X because I needed something to do for the video for whatever. This is not really what I'm playing at the moment. I guess I'm playing Pillars of Eternity 2, but I didn't want to do that for Hanging with Mangg. Yeah, Pillars of Eternity 2, though, you know, I backed the first one on Kickstarter because I had high hopes for it. There was a lot of good talent involved in the making of that game. It was up my alley. It all seemed good. And it was a fine game. You know, there was nothing really that wrong with it, but it didn't, I don't know, it didn't grab me the way, like, I don't know, like the Divinity Original Sin games, or say a Baldur's Gate, or even Torment, Tides of Numenera. But I beat it and it was fine, and so I did back the second one as well, because I thought, okay, you know, they had a good foundation, we'll see how they improve upon it. And again, it just seems kind of fine. I think it's the combat. The combat just does not... combat does not grab me the way I want it to. It just doesn't seem as tactical as something like Divinity Original Sin. And yeah, I mean, I guess you can look at like the story and the characters and stuff, but you know I don't care about that, so... And not to mention, I had a lot of issues, technical issues, which is uncommon. I think early on, I tried to rebind like my attack command, so I could just press a button on the keyboard and then attack something. I rebinded that. I rebound it. And that was all well and good, but then I started to have issues. And I didn't correlate the two for quite a while, but basically, like, I made new characters, I reinstalled the game multiple times, I kept on trying different things. But no matter what I did, I could never use any ability or any spell. Nor could I, like, attack somebody that wasn't already, like, hostile to me. If I just tried to attack an NPC, it never worked. And I couldn't use items. I couldn't, like, throw bombs or use potions or anything like that. Nothing seemed to work. And I was just like, I'm done with this game. It's some bug, they'll patch it or something, I'm done. But no, I have nothing else to do in my life, so I was persistent, and eventually I decided to reset my controls. I think, well, what I found was, like, at the bottom of the control list, there's a button for, like, using ability or something like that, and it's, by default, it's set on enter. And I was like, okay, let me try that. And so by using enter, I could actually use abilities, and I was like, that's pretty funny. But I don't want to use enter. I just want to click like most people. And so I decided to reset, and for some reason that fixed it. So, okay, that's definitely some sort of bug going on. Anyways, yeah, it's fine, I guess. I'll keep playing it. The ship combat is ass, though, and I don't know what they were thinking. That's not fun for anybody. All right, well, this week on this channel, we of course have plenty of God of War, and that's not going away anytime soon. I think we have, I don't know, like 6 more God of War videos, something like that. It's a pretty lengthy game, and obviously I take small breaks and stuff like that. But we did finish Final Fantasy VII last night. I uploaded the final part, so that's good. I feel like I'm trying to talk over this. Yeah, so Final Fantasy VII is done. We're gonna move right along into Final Fantasy VIII this week, which is about a similar length to Final Fantasy VII. Sort of a similar experience as well. Actually, no, that's not true. It's a different kind of experience because, well, you can get very overpowered in that game pretty damn easily. So that should be interesting for those that have not seen the crazy antics of Final Fantasy VIII. And that's pretty much it. Not much else to say about things. I decided that I'm pretty sure I'm gonna go with Detroit Become Human for the next LP. You know, I'm looking at, I looked at both games. I was looking at State of Decay 2, and just, I don't know. You know, it's an open world game. Those just don't tend to make for great LPs, and I figure Detroit will just be more entertaining one way or another, whether it's shit or not. It'll just be more entertaining. I'm sure I'll play State of Decay 2 on my own, but yeah. I think that'll be for the best. And that's pretty much all there is to say about that. I think there will be a bit of a gap between... Actually, there might not be a gap between God of War and Detroit Become Human. Let's see, that comes out in 12 days. No, that sounds about right. Does it come out in 12? No, that can't be right. 12 day, where? No, let me double check that. Yeah, 12 day. How does that work? It's coming out on a Friday. Okay. Yeah, but that sounds about right for when I'll finish uploading all the God of War videos. Let's see. I just uploaded, I think there's about 6 left. I mean, I upload one every other day. 6 times 2 is 12 days. Sounds about right, give or take. So yeah, I think it'll work out. We'll do Detroit Become Human. That should be pretty interesting. And then we'll see what's after that. maybe there'll be SWAT after that. I don't know. It's gonna sit on my hard drive for a while, like many other things. Yeah, so that's that. On the Exploring series, we uploaded Rohan on Monday, and that was received fine enough. I mean, I was obviously a little down on it. I didn't think it was that great, but people like watching videos that don't necessarily need to be made in the first place. Who am I to say? Is what it is. And so then this week I started working on Celtic mythology, which maybe I picked the wrong subject as far as like the first topic. It seems like kind of an important topic. I don't know. You know, all these people interested in Celtic mythology, I don't know if it's because they are knowledgeable about Celtic mythology and they just want to see videos made of it, or they just are sort of familiar with it and they want to see it expanded upon. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know about Celtic mythology. It's definitely not as simple as Norse mythology was. You know, this isn't like Tolkien. You got all the story right there. You've got all the text related to it. You know, yeah, there's some funny business here and there with Christopher Tolkien coming in and doing stuff on his own and blah, blah, blah. And J.R.R. going through all these different iterations of concepts and stuff like that, but for the most part it's all there, black and white, simple. You know, Celtic mythology, you've got all these different regions of the Celts. You know, you've got the Irish and the Welsh and the Scottish and just all across the board. And then you've got the Roman Empire coming in and just ravaging all these, you know, these old religions and stuff. You've got Christianity with just a zero tolerance policy on old religions and mythologies and stuff. And so, you know, Norse definitely has that problem as well with really our surviving texts written by Christians, and so there's these biases, and you know, we're not exactly sure what's legitimate or what was just sort of altered. But yeah, Celtic definitely takes that a step beyond, to the point of you know, Irish mythology is our most well-known of Celtic mythology, just because the Romans didn't really get to the Irish, and so it's the only stuff that's really sort of around still. I don't know. I mean, the series is called Celtic mythology, but I think largely it's going to be Irish mythology. It's definitely a challenge, you know, I'll say that. and I already thought Norse was a bit of a challenge. I keep hoping for an easy series. Like, why does no one ever vote for Warcraft? I can just sort of relax for like a year and just crank out some easier videos where it's all pretty clear. But no, I have to do like some college course on mythologies. And it's like, you know, I have some books here about Celtic myths and things like that. But it's like Celtic Myths and Legends by Peter Beresford Ellis. It's just like, yeah, it's sort of like a redone version of Celtic myths, like a rewritten version almost. And it's like, I don't know if I can really include any of this. I don't know how much of this is really factual. And then it's like, well, what are the facts? You know, that we can't even decide on a singular like creation myth for the Irish. We don't, or for any of the Celtic peoples. We don't know anything. We can't point to one thing. Like, oh yeah, they all believe this is how the world was created. We'll see how it goes. I really have no idea what to think of the first video. Yeah, I tend to be sort of negative on all my stuff, and then it turns out okay. It could be the same thing here. I think really the strongest aspect of Celtic mythology is going to be like the various tales, like the different stories that have been told. I think those are going to end up being the best videos, and so the first video is not a tale. Not really. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. It's tricky. Yeah. So I guess that's that. Moving on. Board game. Okay, so yeah, we actually had a big board game day yesterday. We had a group of 7, believe it or not, 7 people, and we played Cosmic Encounter. Yes, the greatest board game ever made. So 7-man game of Cosmic Encounter with double alien powers. So that was a total of 14 alien powers in the game. Although I think 1 alien was never revealed, and actually 2 players lost their alien powers through the game, throughout most of the game. So really there was only like 10 aliens in the game, which is more manageable. And yeah, so I started out as the empath, which is a pretty vanilla basic power. Basically, if you're a main player, one person plays a negotiate, the other person plays an attack, which usually you're going to be the one playing to negotiate. If you have one, you can use the empath power to make them both negotiates, and then you can just negotiate. And so that power I was not very excited about. That was not a big deal. I used it a couple times. It worked out. I did get a couple colonies out of it. But whatever. The more exciting power, my hidden power, was the filth. And there's a bunch of stipulations involved in it if you have it just throughout the game, revealed and open. But the most important thing is that basically your ships can never coexist on the same planet as another person's ships. They cannot. And so if at any point your ships are coexisting with someone else's ships, all of their ships have to go to somewhere else. They have to go to another colony. They have to go stack up with other ships of that player's color, so that, you know, you remain and everybody else gets kicked off. Now, in a normal game, that wouldn't be that big of a deal because there's, you know, there's these stipulations involved with it, and people are fully aware of this power and blah, 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 blah. But when it's your hidden alien, you know, your hidden alien face down, it doesn't exist. Until you flip it over, it does not exist. It's as if you don't have that alien power. So none of that text matters, just nothing. It's blank. So throughout the game, you know, I'm just playing normally, and I'm going in with other people, I'm allying with them, and I'm sitting with them on these planets. You know, we're all getting colonies together. And so, you know, we're all like, literally there was like a 6-way tie where we're all at like 3 or 4 colonies or something like that. Like, we're all up there. And that's when I reveal the filth. And now suddenly no one can be on the same planet as me. And so pretty much everybody lost 2 or 3 colonies because of that. They all had to just boot out of there because only I can remain on the planet. So that means only I kept my foreign colonies, and everyone else that was with me lost them because their ships had to go elsewhere. So yeah, that was about probably the biggest like swing in the history of Cosmic Encounter that we've had. That does not happen often, and that can really only happen with hidden powers, which is why it's great. Now, in another board game, having that huge of a gap between, you know, the first place and the others probably means an easy win, but it's not the case in Cosmic, and that's why Cosmic is so awesome, because you never know what's going to happen. Things are not planned out whatsoever, which you really have to embrace if you're going to enjoy Cosmic Encounter. So, yeah, I was at 4 colonies or so, and I think either right out or something like that, I got my 5th colony, but I didn't win because one of the players had an alien that had these like special stipulations, his special like privileges. And so one of his that he put out there at a crucial moment was everyone else required 1 more foreign colony to win, so 6, and he required 1 less, so 4, which that's a big deal, like holy shit. So that means I needed 6 colonies to win, and he only needed 4, and I was sitting on 5 colonies, which normally would win, but not the case here. More importantly though, well, I guess not quite as important, but still, another player had an alien called the Cult, which was a very fun one. Basically, he was a cult leader, and if he was ever the main player, he could invite the other person to join the cult. And joining the cult had its benefits, and it had its drawbacks. Benefit was no member of the cult could ever ally against another member of the cult, so that was nice. And if you were attacking a system and there were cult ships anywhere else in the system, they added +1 to your side's total for an encounter, so that helped. That actually did make a difference. And if any one member of the cult wins the game, all members of the cult win the game, which was the big deal, because that's a pretty easy way to get a group win. And so you know, people were hesitant to join the cult at first because the downsides were if a cult member loses an encounter in a system as the defense, any other cult ships in that system are also destroyed. Which means you can and there was a situation where I could have easily lost 2 colonies because of that rule. So that makes it pretty scary to join the cult, because it's pretty easy to, you know, lose a bunch of colonies, and that's why you want the cult to be very big, so that, you know, everyone is helping you out, because you don't, you know, you're all in this together. Also, if you wanted to leave the cult, you had to lose 4 ships and discard 4 cards, which is pretty severe as well. So after I had done the whole filth maneuver, I was in a pretty good spot to win. I was at 5 colonies. Everyone else was in the dumps. So I was in a pretty good spot to win compared to the others, but I was a prime target. And so I got matched up with the cult, and I was invited to join the cult. And, you know, you gotta really look at the writing on the wall. You gotta see, you know, a solo win in the early days of Cosmic Encounter. Solo win was just the end all be all. Like, if you weren't going for a solo win, why are you even playing? But nowadays, you know, we don't play Cosmic that much, and at the end of the day, you'd rather be a winner than a loser. That's just the end of it. So I just didn't reasonably think that I could win solo. I didn't really have any powers that specifically helped me win encounters. And my hand was quite pathetic. I had like the loser flare that allowed me to just automatically cause both sides to lose an encounter, which isn't great. Well, it's good sometimes, but not this time. And I had like a couple weak attack cards, and that was it. And I was like, this is just not good. Going against the cult just is a losing scenario here, especially with this big target on my back. So I decided to join the cult, and they wanted to have me because I was obviously in a prime position to win with some assistance. And so the big deal for most of the later parts of the game was finding a Cosmic Zap card, because by using that we could nullify that ability where you needed 1 extra colony to win, which means that since I had 5 colonies, if we nullified that ability even for, you know, a second, I have 5 colonies, I win the game. So there was a big hunt to try and find the Cosmic Zap, and so we were doing everything we could to get more cards and burn through the deck and blah blah blah, and hoping that no one else, non-cult members, found the Cosmic Zap, because then that would be pretty disastrous for us. And so we did actually bring in the guy who had that power where we needed 1 extra colony to win. We brought him into the cult because he told us that he could just nullify that power at will. He could just turn it off. Yeah, that's what he told us, and we believed him. We're like, oh, all right, this is an easy win. Yeah, nice. And so we invite him to the cult, and right after he gets in the cult, he's like, you know, we're just like, okay, do it. And he's just like looking at his sheet, and he's just like laughing. He's like, I don't know why I thought that. It doesn't say that anywhere. So yeah, he pulled a shenanigan on us. At the end of the day, he was actually the one that drew the Cosmic Zap at the end of the game. So it was good that we had him in the cult. But yeah, but at one point, the cult leader was matched up against Mert, and Mert, of course, wanted to get into the cult, because at this point, you wanted to be in the cult. It was a clear win. So Mert wanted to get into the cult, and so we were like, well, if you have a Cosmic Zap, you know, that would make a big difference. You know, you could get into the cult easily if you had a Cosmic Zap. You know, it's just like, it's like this magic wand that just bypasses the whole entry exam and stuff. It's just, yeah, Cosmic Zap, all right, come right in. And so he was basically trying to play it off like, oh, you know, what does that mean? What, like, he didn't quite understand what it meant if he had a Cosmic Zap. So he's like, oh, so what could I do if I had a cosmic zap? What does that mean if I had a cosmic zap? And we explained it to him, and he tried to make it sound like he had one. I was like, okay, we'll see. So I had a finder card. It allows me to name a player and name a specific card, and if they have it, they have to give it to me. And so I'm like, all right, play the finder on Mert, and I want to see your cosmic zap. And he's just like, oh, I don't have one. And he's like, and we're like, well, you're not getting in the cult then. You have nothing to offer us. And so, sure enough, he never got in the cult. He tried desperately to like placate us and like sort of help us out. Like he actually committed ships to our aid. He tried to like word it so that it was like, oh, this is really our best bet of beating the cult. But no, he helped us out. And so yeah, at the end of the day, we managed to hold out for long enough. And one of the cult members drew an Omni Zap or Cosmic Zap. And we won the game. It's a 4-way tie. You know, there's obviously better victories than that. But there's also bigger losses than that. Better to be in the cult than not. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. Just a fun game of Cosmic. 7-man Cosmic. And then we played some No Thanks for a little bit, and yeah, whatever. Not much to say about that. You know, we've got our Gen Con plans all in order. Even though we really don't play many board games, I especially do not buy many board games anymore. Gen Con is just it's just a great little vacation. You know, you hang out with some buddies, you get some food truck food, you play some games, you know, you do some fun little activities, you get some Long Islands, and it's just a nice little vacation. I think this might actually, hold on. So yeah, I mean, I don't even know like what hot board games are coming out at Gen Con. I have no idea. I don't know. I'll go to the Fantasy Flight booth. I'll go check out Cool Mini or Not, and probably Asmodee, and it's just like, okay, that's about it. I don't know. There's really not a great like incentive for me to buy many board. I still have board games from last Gen Con that I haven't played. And it's just, I know board gaming is becoming more and more popular, but for our group, it's just because we play so many RPGs, you know, like that really takes priority every week. And if we have one day a week to play, it's going to be an RPG. And that's just the end of it. And that's what I would prefer. You know, I vastly prefer RPGs to board games. It's just because that's how I am. I have no idea what to do with these spheres. I always forget these puzzles. I've played this game like a dozen times. I always just follow a guide, so I never memorize it. Anyways. And, you know, RPGs are becoming more popular as well. It's crazy where you see D&D popping up in popular discussion. You know, you got celebrities playing D&D, you've got families playing D&D, know, people introducing it to like old folks' homes and their parents and stuff like that, and people just really getting into it. People introducing their kids to it, and just there's a lot of D&D love going around. Wizards of the Coast is just, you know, on top of the fucking world. I'm pretty sure this is as popular as D&D has ever been. And yeah, I kind of crap on D&D at this point. Not in like a hipster way, I don't think. I mean, for people getting into RPGs, D&D is great. I mean, yeah, it serves all of its purpose. It's not that complicated. It gets the job done. It gets people immersed in a fantasy world just fine. But D&D is like the Settlers of Catan of RPG. Maybe that's a little bit harsh. That's probably a little bit harsh, because I could play D&D and have a good time. It's not like impossible. You know, the last time we did 5th edition, I think, was a Ziggy campaign. Oh no, I think that was 4th edition. No, 5th edition I think was the Purple Brain one. Yeah, that was the Purple Brain campaign, which we had a fun time with. That was a memorable little campaign with D&D 5th edition, and that was absolutely fine. And then we did the Onward and Upward one, where it was in like the huge underground area, and we were at the bottom little like cesspool, and that was 4th edition, and that was a fun little time. There were some wild moments in that one, and you know, we still discuss that from here and there. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of potential in D&D, but nowadays, with just the breadth of different RPGs, you know, even just fantasy RPGs, none of us really have any urge to pick up D&D again. You know, if we just want a very vanilla fantasy RPG, you know, high fantasy stuff, we're probably going to pick up Dungeon World. You know, that's probably going to be the go-to game, just because it's so easy to get going, and it's so quick. Now that's really the big bummer, I think, among all of us for D&D, is just the speed of combat. It's just atrocious. I mean, maybe if you really enjoy like tactical, very rule-based combat, you have that mindset, maybe D&D is just your go-to thing. But even then, there's probably something better. But for the most part, combat is just like a means to an end, you know. It's just like a function within a game to continue the story. And yeah, you know, you need to have rules to decide how a combat plays out. So you can't just say, I win. Sometimes you should be able to say, I win, as we're learning with Godbound. There are definitely instances where you can say, I win. But most of the time, combat needs to just be adjudicated in a simple way, where there are stakes to it. You know, you can die, you can lose, but you don't need to get into the nitty-gritty of everything. You know, it's like, I remember Spoonie talking about like a Western RPG where they had rules for like every like 10th of a second or something in combat. And so, you know, to really like figure out how fast you can draw your gun and raise it up and aim, you know, in a like a duel or whatever it's called, a standoff, whatever the term is. And you really got to get into the nitty gritty of you know, this super fast paced combat, so you can really decide, you know, who wins and who dies. And I remember he said he didn't really ever play it just because that's insane. And so obviously D&D is not to that extent, but it's just too long. It's just too long. Spending even like 30 minutes on a combat just seems way too excessive. Maybe if you're playing like a 6-hour session every week, spending 30 minutes or an hour on a big combat, sure, you know, whatever. Well, you know, we play 3 hours a week, and so spending, you know, a fifth or a sixth of that on one combat, I don't care for that. I'd rather just keep the story flowing. Get to the next thing, keep going. You know, there's more exciting things than deciding how well I can handle these wolves. And that's why I'm going into 4th edition, and just I mean, I still have nightmares about that Roll20 4th edition thing I joined, where just 4-hour combat, 4 hours for like one combat. It's like the campaign for North Africa or whatever of RPGs. It's just, oh god. And so, yeah, we were discussing all this actually last night at Applebee's, as one does. And Studs was there, and if you remember, Studs played in the Artemis campaign, which, even though it was 4th edition D&D, it does remain the hallmark of our RPG adventures. Our longest campaign, our most epic campaign, from 5th level to 30th level, with some skips in there, but, you know, it's still probably the most memorable campaign we've had. And it was just 3 players. 3 players and a DM is very simple. And so we were discussing things, and Studs has pretty much quit RPGs entirely since the end of the Artemis campaign, for the most part. I think he did a little bit after that, but yeah, he really fell out of it, and he just didn't care for RPGs at all. And I think that's largely due to D&D. Like, he just really does not care for it anymore. Again, mostly because of the combat. And so we were sitting there telling him about all, you know, the other RPGs we've played since then. Dungeon World and Shadow of the Demon Lord, Sprawl, and Blades in the Dark, and Godbound. We mentioned Godbound a bunch because we're all very excited for it. And so he asked if he could join, to which I said, of course. Because I think 4 players and a DM is a lot better than 3 players and a DM. So yeah, he's gonna read up on the rules, make a character, and he's gonna show up tomorrow for the 1-shot, which will probably be a 2-shot. So we'll see how that goes. And then Mert messages and he says, oh, can I join as well? And I'm like, well, you know, if he can make it, sure. I don't think, I mean, maybe he'll make it tomorrow for a couple hours, but I don't think he'll be a regular. Studs, yeah, he might actually be a regular, which would be good. Anyways, Sprawl. We finished the Sprawl campaign. So that session, the final session that we did last Monday, I was involved in almost none of it. I did practically nothing. It was probably my least involved session ever of an RPG, except for maybe like the 4-hour combat. But even then, I made more actions than I did in this session. I rolled the dice like twice. And even that, I don't know how consequential it was. I was just doing nothing that whole time. But it was enjoyable to just witness the spectacle of what was happening. So basically, election was coming up pretty soon. We leaked the photographs showing the current mayor with a prostitute, and of course he took a big hit in the polls. All was well and good. And I was invited to some sort of fundraiser or something like that, some sort of benefit. You know, you gotta glad hand people and things like that. And I was like, all right, I'll go to this. So I got my bulletproof vest on, and I got my 2 bodyguards, and we went to this event, and all seemed pretty well. I was given like 150,000 new yen in donations, so that was pretty nice. And as we're leaving, we see a huge bunch of cops there. Well, not a huge bunch, but a group of cops. And they approach me. And I'm just like, what seems to be the problem? And they're like, can we talk with your associate here? And he points to Phil's character. And I'm like, go right ahead. And so Phil went over to talk to the cops. We hightailed it out of there. I immediately call my campaign manager. I'm like, delete every single reference to William Bang you have. Like, just completely erase, any connection we've ever had with this man, because he's talking to the police. So he goes through the whole server and just wipes out everything. And then, every text we have, just everything. We've never, I don't even know who this is. He delivered coffee or something like that. I don't know. So yeah, it turns out when earlier on, before the mayoral thing, or around the start of that, I don't remember, William Bang wanted to buy a hoverboard. I don't know why. He used it once, and he didn't even need to use it. It was completely pointless. I don't know why he wanted it. But he wanted it so badly that he was willing to give up his fingerprints to a scrupulous fellow. Or is it unscrupulous? I don't know. A shady fellow. Using some device, this guy basically, took his fingerprints, and at a crime scene then, I guess he used some sort of gloves or something like that had his fingerprints on it. I don't know why you wouldn't just use regular gloves that provide no fingerprints. But for whatever reason, sometimes you gotta have fingerprints. And so he used William Bang's fingerprints. And Phil voluntarily did this process. He gave up his fingerprints voluntarily, knowing what was gonna happen, just because he really wanted the money to get this hoverboard. So he did that. He got his hoverboard. He used it once. It was completely pointless. He's a moron. And so now the cops have been finding these crime scenes all over the place with his fingerprints on it. And so, of course, he's going away for a long, long time. So they cuff him. They put him in a squad car, and they're taking him down to the station. And he decides, well, okay, he's not going to go to the station because that's suicide. He's got to bust out. And so he set up his car to have remote driving capabilities, and he has his car drive through the city to meet up with him in the squad car while they're driving. And so sure enough, he's in the back of the squad car handcuffed, and his car is right behind him. And so then he has his car smash into the squad car, and it hits a light pole, and miraculously he's able to get out of the squad car, still handcuffed. And the cops miraculously die. He was very lucky in this process, but I think Ziggy was being generous. Also, I think he rolled pretty well for most of this stuff. So he gets in his car and he speeds out of there. He gets out of there and he just keeps going. He just keeps going. He keeps driving. He goes all the way to Texas, and he's done. He's out of the campaign. He figured, don't go see Gug. Don't go see anybody. Just go. And so, all right, he makes it out. Good for him. All right. But, the press gets word of this, that a man in my employ, working for me, is wanted for all these crimes, these brutal crimes across New York. And he worked for me, and so it reflects very poorly on me. My poll, the points in the poll went down, and I was pissed. I was like, okay, we gotta gotta do some damage control. We gotta distract people from this immediately. And so I'm like, go get the prostitute and have her film like a whole confession and just a whole sordid, detailed affair about this thing with the mayor. You know, all the gruesome details about all his weird kinks and stuff. Just everything. Have her tell everything. And we'll pay her $20,000. Because I had just gotten $150,000 in donations. And so we do so. She films the whole thing, tells all the whole story. And we release it as fast as possible to get people's mind off this whole criminal thing. And it works. I get a few points back in the poll. Things are looking better. All right. So election day comes. Our plan is to have most of the Yankees, the gang, at the poll centers with like holding their baseball bats with like vote Rufus Wise or vote Wise shirts on and hats on and stuff, and sort of just gripping their bats menacingly. You know, people know, you know, you better vote for Rufus Wise. They better see you walking out with a Rufus Wise pin on your vest or something. You know, they better see that. The other Yankees we put in charge of, we rented out 20 buses. And 12 of them we put on banners that said something about, you know, transport to voting centers as sponsored by Rufus Wise. And we put these in districts that were likely to vote for me. And then 8 of the buses, we did the opposite. We said, you know, transportation to voting centers sponsored by Steve Manderly. And we put those in areas that were likely to vote for the current mayor. So the ones that were for me, they were just legitimate. They would transport people to the voting centers and back. The ones for Manderly, though, those were never going to a voting center at all. They're never going there. And so I said multiple times, like, yeah, just fill them up with Manderly voters and just drive them into the ocean. And I think they thought I was joking. I think Thomas thought I was joking. He never did that. I would have been perfectly happy if that's what happened. But no, he went on a bus with a couple of Yankees, and they filled it up with Manderly voters, and they start driving. And at first he just tries to fool them, like, oh, we're going to this voting center, you know, on the other, you know, Manderly's going to be there. He wants to see all of you. And so we're going to the farthest one. And then they get on the freeway and they just keep driving, and people are starting to get upset. And so he tells them that there is a bomb on the bus. And at first he says planted by Rufus Wise. And I'm just sitting there thinking, what the fuck? Because people immediately pull out their comm links and start like, Rufus Wise planted bombs on buses. And I'm just like, you motherfucker. And so he says the bomb will go off if the bus goes below 55 miles per hour. Just like in that movie, The Woman on the Bus, or whatever it is. Or the bus that can't go below 55 miles per hour. And so he's like, also, comlinks seem to be interfering with the bomb, and I need to collect all of them or they might set it off. And so everybody gives up their comlink to him, and he puts it in a big bag. And I'm like, okay, I guess this will work. And like the polls close at like 6 p.m. He's got to keep these people busy the entire day. That's why you just drive them into the ocean. It's done. But he decides, no, he's just got to keep driving. All right. And so he keeps telling them, like, the police have been notified and blah, blah, blah. And eventually they get to like a park or something like that, like way outside of town. And he's like, okay, stop here. And I think he tells them that the bomb has been disarmed remotely, like it was remotely disarmed. And he gives them all their comlinks back because he tells them that the bomb was not set by Rufus Wise. It was set by some mutoid men. And he really tries to emphasize this so that everybody tweets out, you know, oh, it's not Rufus, it was a mutoid men that did it. Trying to, you know, fix that problem that he made. So, okay, the bus is stopped in a park, the bomb is disarmed, and now everyone's like, okay, so we can go home now. And he's like, yeah, we gotta fuel up and then we'll be on our way back. Meanwhile, it's like 11 a.m. Like, he's got like 7 more hours to go to keep these people busy. Like, he's fucked up so much. And so he's like, well, eventually he's like, okay, the bus just is broken. So we have to walk back. And half of the people are like, okay, we'll walk. And then the other half's like, well, can't we just wait for the cops? And he's just like, sure, I guess. And so he starts walking with half the group, the other half sitting on the bus. He walks for like 10 minutes through the park, and he's just like, this isn't working. I can't do this. And so he gathers them all up, and they kill them all. They kill half the civilians. So 30 some people or whatever. Just a big butchered pile of corpses in the middle of a park. And he's just like, okay, well, here we are. So we have to do the other half now. So they go back to the bus, and they butcher the other half with like baseball bats and machetes and stuff. It's just a slaughterhouse. Horrific. So, and then his big concern with the whole situation was they needed to return the bus in functional, you know, pristine condition so that he got his money back or his deposit back or whatever. So that's why he didn't want to dump it in the ocean, because he wanted his money back. And so, like, I just made $150,000 in donation. I'm not even mayor yet. This is such a small issue. You butchered 70 people in a park. So he wants to get the bus back to the station where he rented it. So they push out all the bodies from the bus onto the park. So now the park has 2 separate piles of corpses. They drive the bloody bus to a car wash. Actually, no, he drives it to a farm. He drives it to a farm, and he takes the farmer's hose, and he just hoses down the inside of the bus. And like the entrails are washing out, and just, oh god. And he drives the freshly cleaned bus back to the depot, and the guy's just like, okay, you got the keys, all right, thanks. And that's it. And that was the end of it. So ridiculous. And then I think he fled as well. I think he left, he came and he sort of like, I didn't want details because I heard stuff on the news about this bomb on a bus and stuff like that. And I heard my name mentioned, and I'm just like, oh God. And I was like, I don't want to know details. He comes back like covered in blood. And so I don't want to know anything. And I told him, like, I will pay you $30,000 if you just go. If you just leave right now. And he's just like, oh, okay. So I gave him 30,000 new yen, and he went to some other state. I don't know. He left. The poll numbers came in. I, of course, won. So I became the new mayor, and that was the end of the campaign. Yeah, pretty wild stuff. Again, you know, not the most exciting campaign, especially for me. I wasn't involved in that much, but it was a fun time. We all survived. All 3 starting characters survived the full 8 sessions, beginning to end, which is wild considering some of the stuff we did. You know, we got into multiple shootouts. We did a police raid. We killed multiple police. We had car chases. Like, there was some wild stuff there earlier on, and we all survived. So that was pretty cool. It was a good time. Yeah. So tomorrow we'll be doing the Godbound adventure, the 10 Buried Blades, which I'll be running. I've read through it a couple times. I feel pretty confident. I don't really know what's going to happen. You know, it can go in wildly different directions when you're dealing with like 5 demigods or something, you know, 4 or 5 demigods. Who knows what's going to happen? It's going to be a different kind of experience for everybody, but should be a lot of fun. Check out the first video for Celtic mythology tomorrow on the Tua de Danann. We'll see how that goes. You got more God of War coming this week, as well as Final Fantasy VIII. And my name is Mangg. This has been Hanging with Mangg. I'll see you fine folks next week.